Update, brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300. Manx Radio's Update with Andy Wint.
Good evening, it's 5:30. This is Update for Tuesday, 16th of May 2023 from Manx Radio. 30 minutes to look at the latest news on the Isle of Man and background to the news and sport and business and Sea Watch and travel updates and the newsmakers in person. This evening, no appeal from government against the ransom £3.2 million payout. The latest on the murder retrial. Will Westmoreland Village actually meet the housing needs, strengthening ties with Westminster? And would you join the constabulary?
Man Benham for all your business and legal needs.
First of all, at 29 minutes ahead of 6 o'clock, the Update News headlines. Fastamai Siobhan Fletcher.
Fastamai, a former Castletown resident who's accused of murdering his wife's lover, told police it was he who was fighting for his life. Ian Anthony Anderson is being retried for the murder of Ballabeg man Neil Edward Roberts. Today, the jury at Douglas Courthouse was read excerpts of interviews he gave following his arrest in December 2013. You'll be able to find more on this story at manxradio.com. Members of Tynwald have voted in favour of an independent review into the management by the Isle of Man government of the Ranson versus DHSC employment case. MHK's Daphne Kane, Sarah Maltby and Stu Peters have been appointed to a 3-member select committee to oversee the review. The coroner of inquest is calling for a review into training and policies at the Emergency Services Joint Control Room following a death by suicide. Christopher Arrowsmith made 2 recommendations to the Department of Home Affairs following the inquest into the death of Ramsey man Philip Carl Massam, who died in February 2021. Further afield, 3 members of a gang which sold passports to on-the-run criminals for 20 years have been jailed. The trio got hold of documents from vulnerable lookalikes and renewed them with photos of gun smugglers and traffickers. Police in Essex are investigating an MP there over accusations of serious sexual assault. Julian Knight was told by the Met in March that its inquiry was over, but now it's been handed over to a neighbouring force. And the Village People have reportedly told Donald Trump to stop using their music. The band are annoyed about footage of the former US president dancing to Macho Man during a campaign event. They're your headlines. News at 6.
Man Benham. Contact us by phone, video call, email or face-to-face. We're happy to connect with you. Manx Radio Weather with Manx Glass and Glazing.
Garamaya, thank you, Siobhan, from the Ronalds Met Office. There's no current wind warning in operation for the North Irish Sea. State of sea is smooth or slight, and the weather this evening dry with some late bright spells. A light west-northwest wind. Overnight minimum is 8 degrees. For Wednesday, Jacrane, dry with variable cloud tomorrow. Some sunny periods in a light to moderate west-northwest wind veering southwesterly up to 16 degrees. It'll be a dry evening and night, lowest 10 Celsius. Into Jardine, dry and bright on Thursday in a light to moderate southwesterly. Cloudier as the day goes on and daylight maximum 17 Celsius. Sunset tonight, 16 minutes past 9. The late high tide, 18 minutes past 10. Low water, 29 minutes to 5 tomorrow morning. Sunrise, 12 minutes past 5. And the morning high water at 25 to 11.
Manx Glass and Glazing can produce bespoke splashbacks for your kitchen in any colours. Speak to the team on 674 573.
The Department of Health and Social Care won't appeal against a tribunal decision to award the Isle of Man's former medical director £3.2 million in compensation. Health Minister Laurie Hooper made the announcement in Tynwald, where he also apologised to Dr Ranson after she was fired for whistleblowing.
Echoing the Chief Minister in the House of Keys last week, I would like to begin my remarks by offering a sincere apology to Dr Rosalind Ranson on behalf of the Department of Health. I also wish to underline at the outset a point which has been made on a number of occasions previously, namely that the Department fully accepts the liability decision of the 11th of May 2022 and has not at any time sought to go behind it. The liability decision raised a number of queries around disclosure, which necessitated further inquiry. but there would always have been a hearing around remedy irrespective of these concerns. These proceedings, the disclosure and then the remedy hearings, were conducted within the parameters which were set quite clearly by the original liability decision, and the department has fully respected them throughout. Honourable members are well aware of the level of public interest that these proceedings have attracted, and that as the DHSC Minister I've been unable to talk publicly in any detail about the department's involvement in them. I can assure this Honourable Court that these constraints have left me as frustrated as you have no doubt been. Although the time for appealing the quantum decision has not yet expired, I think that it is important to use this opportunity to place on record the approach the department has taken since the liability decision was issued in May 2022. I also want to use this opportunity to confirm to honourable members that the department will not be seeking to lodge an appeal to the High Court. The department would like to thank the tribunal for their balanced consideration throughout the remedy process. I can also confirm that the department has put the necessary steps in place with Treasury to process the payment due to Dr. Ranson and has made a proactive approach to her legal representatives in relation to the costs award in an effort to expedite satisfactory resolution.
A former Castletown resident who's accused of murdering his wife's lover told police it was he who was fighting for his life. Ian Anthony Anderson's being retried for the murder of Ballabeg man Neil Edward Roberts. He was killed in 2013. Tessa Hawley was at Douglas Courthouse today, and you may find this report contains some distressing detail.
Today, the jury was read excerpts of interviews Mr. Anderson gave to police following his arrest at his home on Queen Street in the early hours of the 1st of December 2013. The 54-year-old had told detectives he was not responsible for the death of Mr. Roberts, who the court was told previously was having an affair with his wife Alison. He told officers he'd been relaxing at his home with her on the 30th of November when Mr. Roberts made a call for help to the couple. Mr. Anderson picked him up and, after stopping at the pub, returned to the Castletown property. It was here Mr. Anderson told officers he was attacked 3 times by Mr. Roberts, the first whilst Mr. Anderson was on the phone to his son. Alleging that Mr. Roberts had punched him in the face and body, he said at the time, "I was dazed, effectively fighting for my life." On the second occasion, Mr. Anderson recounted how he and Mr. Roberts were involved in a struggle on the sofa, which saw him pin the self-employed gardener down by his neck. Claiming he told Mr. Roberts to leave his home on 7 to 8 occasions, Mr. Anderson told police, "I'm feeling like I'm going to get killed now." Addressing the third incident, Mr. Anderson told officers he just wouldn't stop coming at me. "I'm just punching for my life now, punching and kicking." "What stopped the incident?" asked the officer. Mr. Anderson replied, "Alison was screaming, 'You've killed him. You've killed him.'" Ian Anderson denies murder. The trial will continue tomorrow.
Update brought to you by Simcox Advocates.
A packed room of residents attended a meeting last night to debate the plan for a new village on Westmoreland Road, Douglas. Concerns were raised about parking spaces, the scale of the development, and the lack of affordable homes in the plan. We'll hear from a resident in a moment. First of all, Douglas Councillor Devon Watson.
It's incredible to see a community-led response. Politics should be led by communities, and it should not be led by politicians. So to hear a variety of views tonight was fantastic. And the fact that people can raise a variety of different viewpoints and have a civil debate is exactly what we need. In general, we need a lot more housing. We're in the middle of a housing crisis. A lot of people are struggling right now to afford housing, and a lot of that is a supply and demand issue. But at the exact same time, residents have raised legitimate concerns that do need to be answered before we throw full support behind that. So we hope the MDC can address these concerns so this can move forward and we can get the housing people desperately need. I'll be lobbying the government to answer the questions of community. I'll be lobbying the government to increase the housing stock, and I'm going to be lobbying the government to push for more affordable housing. People need this, and if we're going to keep young people, if we're going to keep essential workers in the island, that's exactly what we need.
It went well. It was well attended, really fabulous. And I think nobody is against development. It's just too dense and doesn't really address what the area needs. It needs public green space for everybody to enjoy, kindergarten space, parking. And of course it needs housing, but not just. I would like the development to be less dense, to be less tall.
The outgoing outgoing chairman of the Isle of Man Police Federation is encouraging others to consider a career in policing despite the challenges faced by the profession. Detective Constable Richard Hewitt retires today after 35 years working in public service, but he's not going far.
Prior to being a police officer and joining Nottinghamshire Constabulary, I was proud to be a member of the Royal Green Jackets. I was a soldier for a number of years. It's a strange one, really, because I can't ever remember doing anything other than policing or being a soldier. It's something I'm immensely proud of, having been a member of the armed forces and also a police officer. And I'd encourage anyone to do the same. We know that pay is not great in the police service, but it is such a rewarding career. It's so varied. Proud to have served the public in Nottinghamshire, and I'm immensely proud to have helped serve the community on the Isle of Man and hopefully make the island as safe as it could be. I still think there's a little bit of gas in the tank. I still think that I've got something to give, and that might be, helping new specials in terms of, if there's any of these new specials or new cops need a little bit of advice and a bit of help with something, I'll still be knocking around. And I do enjoy and I am proud to serve the island, so I can still do a little bit of that. I think sometimes the way of life, when you come from having worked in a city, and I'd worked in predominantly sort of safeguarding, child safeguarding areas across, it can take a little bit of getting used to, getting settled. However, I wouldn't move back now. This is my home.
Sea Watch with the Isle of Man Steam Packet Company.
At 19 minutes before 6, Ben McCree departed Heysham at 22 minutes past 2. She'll be on the link span in Douglas in the next 15 minutes or so, departing at 7:45, arriving in Heysham at 11:30. The overnight departure 2:15 back to Douglas at 6 tomorrow morning. High-speed craft Manannan departed Douglas at 13 minutes to 3. She's on the link span in Liverpool now, will be departing at 7:15 back to Douglas at 10 o'clock tonight. Tomorrow morning's departure, Ben McCree heads to Heysham at 8:45.
Follow the Steam Packet on Twitter for the latest sailing information.
Corinthians captain Josh Ridings believes the future's bright for the club after they secured a cup double in Manx football for the season by winning the Railway Cup against Premier League champions Peel at the weekend. After lifting the silverware, Josh says he thinks they can go for even more success next season if they can find some rhythm.
I'm quite happy with how it's ended. I think a double's a great season for us, especially with the pre-season we had. They did pick us the league and it was a tough one to take, but they were the better team, they were more consistent than us, so fair play to them, credit to them. They've been wanting to do it for a while. But like I say, we got the 2 cups and as a club we're happy with that, and we'll hopefully crack on again next year. The FC boys are coming at the end, which has really helped, just give us a bit of a lift. Got a few young lads as well that have come, and the next few years they'll be really adding to the depth of the squad even more. So just maybe around Christmas a few knocks, we were a bit weak, and that's probably what's cost us overall for the league, but the depth's there and the future's bright over the next 3 or 4 years. Obviously a lot of postponements, and I think that's ultimately what's cost us in the end, because we couldn't really get that rhythm. Obviously Peel winning every week 1-0, 2-0, so ultimately I think maybe that's cost us, but that's just the way it works in amateur footy, and hopefully next season we can just get on a bit of a more run, get 3 points after 3 points each week. So
Manx Radio Business Briefing.
At 17 minutes before 6, British multinational telecoms company Vodafone said it's cutting 11,000 jobs and expected to post flat earnings next year after reporting a decline in annual profits in a performance described as not good enough. True, not good enough by its chief exec. Our performance hasn't been good enough to consistently deliver. Vodafone must change, says the chief exec Margarita Della Valle in a scathing assessment of the company. For a full daily market report, go to ramseycrookall.com. EU legislation meant to limit artificial intelligence risk cleared an important hurdle when 2 European Parliament committees approved the European AI Act. The bill set requirements for developers of large language models and generative AI software such as the ChatGPT chatbox by ensuring that data used to train AI doesn't violate copyright law. The proposed rules also prohibit the use across the EU of facial recognition programs in public, predictive, policing, AI systems and emotional recognition, made infamous by the dystopian movie Minority Report. Now, the fines for providers breaching the rules could amount to €10 million or 2% of annual turnover, whichever is the higher. The bill aims to be the first in the world to regulate AI across a whole region, categorizing 4 levels of risk: minimal, limited, high risk and unacceptable.
The Stock Market Report, brought to you by Ramsey Crookall.
UK and European stock markets closed lower. The US dollar drifted higher after data showed retail sales in April were lower than expected. Oil rose and gold dropped after the US central bank officials indicated they expect interest rates to stay high. And the numbers now from Ramsey Crookall at the close in London. The FTSE 100 was down 0.33% at 7,751. The DAX in Frankfurt down just over 0.1% at 15,897. A short time ago in New York City, the Dow Jones Industrial down 0.7% at 33,122. The Nasdaq Tech Stocks Index up fractionally, almost 0.1% at 12,373. And the S&P 500 in Chicago down almost 0.4% at 4,121. In the exchange markets, the British pound sterling is trading at $1 24.9 cents, €1 14.9 cents, and 23 South African rand 82.1 cents. In commodities, gold is down 1.1% at $1,997 per troy ounce, and a barrel of Brent crude down 0.5% at $75.08.
You've got an investment plan?
Yeah, Mike set it up.
But don't you need loads of money to do that?
Not this one. It's called Shearwater from Ramsey Crookall, and you pay in monthly as little as £100. So it's like saving regularly, really helping us invest in the future for a house, or the kids' education.
£100 a month? I could easily do that.
You should. The sooner you start, the better.
Invest in your future with as little as £100 a month. Shearwater from Ramsey Crookall, the island's investment specialist for 75 years. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
If you have a news story for Manx Radio to investigate and report, email newsroom@manxradio.com or call 682 631 any time of day or night.
The Justice and Home Affairs Minister believes ties between the Isle of Man and UK governments have been strengthened following her recent trip to London. Jane Paul Wilson MHK was guest of the UK House of Commons Speaker Sir Lindsay Hoyle at the unveiling of a stained glass window depicting the coat of arms of the Crown dependencies.
It was an excellent opportunity not only to meet with those representatives and for example, there were representatives there from the Falklands, St Helena, Tristan da Cunha, Bermuda, Cayman, Gibraltar. So it was a great opportunity to connect with them as well as from Guernsey and Jersey. But while I was there, I also took the opportunity to meet with others, key contacts such as the Justice Committee Chair, Sir Bob Neal, the Lord Chancellor, Alex Chalk, MP, and the Ministry of Justice Minister, Mike Freer, MP. And we also took the opportunity to connect with the Shadow Justice Secretary, Steve Reed, MP, because it was a good chance to let those people know more about the island, also some of our work around our island plan and economic strategy, but to help them get to know us so that they have an increased understanding of what we're doing and what our potential needs might be. Really important that they do have a good understanding. So the Isle of Man, being a Crown dependency, doesn't get to represent itself, for example, in negotiations that might be about trade deals and so on. So the Ministry of Justice will be the body that not only looks after us from a legislation perspective in terms of helping us get royal assent for our legislation, but also might assist us if we do need to try and get our voice heard with different parts of government, perhaps in matters like negotiations on various issues. And the more they understand about us, the better I think it is that they can facilitate that kind of assistance should we need it.
Manx Radio Sport.
Faster My sports editor Rob Pritchard.
Faster My, good evening. Starting with motorsport, and the team of TT rider Lee Johnston says he's on the slow road to recovery after his crash at the Northwest 200 last week. Johnston was involved in an incident during the Supersport practice session last Thursday and suffered a broken femur and shoulder, a break in the foot and face, several broken ribs and a collapsed lung. In the update on Johnston's Instagram page, the team is thanking all the staff who've been caring for Lee and praised the amount of support he's received, describing it as incredible, and none of it has been unnoticed. They go on to add, it's going to be a slow and hard recovery, but he will be back better than ever, and ask that people respect his privacy whilst he recovers. Turning now to football, and Braddon will be hoping to book their place in the Canada Life Men's Premier League next season this evening as part of the latest set of midweek fixtures. The Swans travel to face Ramsey Youth Centre Old Boys at the Ballaclone Stadium tonight, with Braddon needing a win to leapfrog Michael United into second in Division 2 and join league champions St Mary's in the top flight for the next campaign. That's one of 6 league fixtures taking place tonight. In the Premier League, Railway Cup winners Corinthians host St George's, Douglas High School Old Boys welcome Morown at Blackberry Lane, and a battle of 3rd versus 4th as Union Mills take on St St John's United at Gary Moor. In the other two games in Division 2 this evening, Governors Athletic take on Douglaston District and Gyms face Foxdale. All matches are due to get underway tonight at 6:30pm. And finally, in golf, Manx golfer Anna Dawson has climbed up one place in the professional rankings after more positive displays in Europe at the weekend. The Peel-born competitor returned to the Ladies European Tour roster for the Jabra Ladies Open and finished tied in 52nd place on 8 over par. The result means Dawson moves up one place in the rankings to 140th. Meanwhile, fellow Island pro Tom Gandy has made his return to professional action for 2023 this month as he contested the opening two events of the Clutch Pro Tour. At the opener at St Melian, he went on to tie for 31st position with a final score of 7 over par before finishing tied in 33rd on 3 over par in the following competition at Frilford Heath Red.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
3 inbound at Ronaldsway tonight. The 10-8 Loganair from London City showing on time. The 5-8 Loganair returning patient transfer from Liverpool on time. The 8:15 EasyJet from Gatwick's a quarter of an hour late at 8:30. So outbound 6 o'clock Loganair to Liverpool on time. The 8:45 EasyJet back to Gatwick's delayed until 9 o'clock tonight. On the roads, temporary lights in Douglas at Groves Road near the NSC. Temporary lights on Upper Dukes Road, the Falconcliffe Terrace junction for that water main work. In Oncombe, Groundle Road's closed between Church Road and Fairway Close for gas work. And there are temporary lights on at Keg Edward Road between Groudle and the Liverpool Arms for drainage work. Temporary closure still around East Quay and Peel. Temporary lights on the Glen Road near the football club in Laxey. And temporary lights on the A1 by the Highlander at Greba. Temporary lights on the TT course for tree felling at Glen Helen, and lights too at Solby Strait for resurfacing. The Ballymena roads got phase closures for water main repairs. And tomorrow at the airport, the drop-off lane is outside the terminal is closed to cars between 9 and 5 tomorrow. Be aware of that. Tomorrow, 9 till 5 at the airport.
Quayside Tyres and Service Centre Club Card has over £400 worth of saving for your whole family. Get more with
Failing to resource its payroll team with adequately trained staff constitutes maladministration by the Isle of Man Government's Office of Human Resources. The finding of a Tynwald Commission of Administration after one government worker was left with a 4-figure bill due to a tax code error. The story from Sian Cowper.
Angela Main Thompson was asked to investigate after Ms V was left owing Treasury a 4-figure sum when she left the government workforce. Ms V held 2 part-time positions in government and was promoted in one, meaning she was paid at 2 different grades. As a result, her salary wasn't deducted correctly, something Ms Main Thompson found wasn't clear from her pay slips. While looking into the complaint, the Tynwald Commissioner found OHR's payroll team had been reduced from 16 members of staff to 4, while high staff turnover had resulted in an inexperienced team. The payroll office is responsible for 11,000 salaries and 8,000 pensions, which Ms Main Thompson described as a staggering statistic, fearing Ms V's case could be the tip of an iceberg. While the report found responsibility for ensuring tax liability is paid lies with the individual, the Tynwald Commissioner found OHR did breach its statutory duty by failing to inform Ms V of her right to make a complaint, resulting in a ruling of maladministration. Ms Main Thompson also found the failure to have an adequately trained payroll team also amounts to maladministration. The report acknowledges that changes have already been made to improve the complaints procedure, and Ms Main Thompson says she's satisfied proper safeguards are now in place to prevent the error being repeated.
Update brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300.
The coroner of inquest is calling for a review into training and policies at the Emergency Services Joint Control Room following a death by suicide. Christopher Arrowsmith made 2 recommendations to the Department of Home Affairs following the inquest into the death of the Ramsey man Philip Carl Massam, who died in February 2021. The story from Lewis Foster.
When one of Mr. Massam's colleagues called 999 to report the incident, the ESJCR operator failed to give appropriate guidance, with the inquest hearing that she started to panic when she couldn't find the correct code in the control room's computer system. The court was told the computer would have given different instructions to the operator had she been able to find the correct code. Evidence from the operator's co-workers revealed that complaints had been made about her lack of attention and competency, as well as her accessing Facebook while on on duty, although her supervisor stated that he would have taken action had he had concerns. Despite concerns over the instructions issued by the ESJCR, medical evidence submitted to the inquest suggests the delay in starting medical treatment is unlikely to have made a significant difference to the 33-year-old's chances of survival. While recording a verdict of suicide, Mr. Arrowsmith recommended the DHA consider an internal review of its policies and procedures for ESJCR operators on accessing non-work-related websites whilst on duty. Mr. Arrowsmith has also called for the department to consider including specific training dealing with calls of this nature as part of its 2-year recurrency process.
5 to 6 on Update on Manx Radio. Ben McCree safely in the Inner Harbour now, just going on to the link span. And graduates are being asked to complete a survey on the Isle of Man and what it's like as a place to live and work. University College Isle of Man and Locate Isle of Man are looking at what can be done to retain and attract young people to the Isle of Man. It's hoping to release the findings after June. Higher Education Development Manager Gail Corran says they did the same survey in 2004 and 2018.
The results from 2004-2008 were remarkably similar. So around about half of young Manx people who went away to study off island were keen to return to the island at some stage. It wasn't always straight away, but it was at some stage, so that the connection with the island seems to remain really strong. And that was a figure that was the same in 2018. So, just under half of the people were quite clear they wanted to come back to the island at some stage. So it'll be interesting to see whether now in 2023, so which is almost 20 years from that first survey, whether that remains the same. In addition to that, the factors that perhaps were challenging for young people to return to the island were also quite similar in the last 2 surveys. So again, will it be the same now? So that was issues around access to affordable housing as first-time buyers. It was the travelling to and fro the island that we know is travel to and from the island, costs money and it's not always easy sometimes, and it's kind of the burden we carry for being on a beautiful island, but that's quite a barrier for young people, I guess, for them to take other things they want to do, travel, adventures, etc. And of course, another factor, of course, if you're a young professional, is that sometimes you want to really gain experience in a broader market than just the island. So some of the students were quite keen to get their first jobs, their early careers in a bigger market, whether that be the UK or beyond. So those are some of the factors that were of interest to graduates. But the passion for the island is palpable, is what we found in the last couple of surveys.
Just a quick word, tomorrow, Ramsey's Minor Injuries and Illnesses Unit is opening later tomorrow due to staffing issues, open 9:30 till 8 p.m, last admission at 7:30. And that's it for Update, brought to you from the resources of Manx Radio's news department. Thanks to newsreader Siobhan Fletcher, producer Beth Espy. I'm Andy Wint, back tomorrow at 5:30.
WINT